let's get started. Welcome everyone to sorry, just give me a minute here. Welcome everyone to the October 4th meeting of the Infrastructure Task Force. Could you please take the roll?
Here. Here.
Here. Thank you very much. Okay, moving on to the approval of the agenda. Has everyone taken a look at the agenda? And if there are no questions, can I get a motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve.
Ralph motions,
Second.
Jerry seconds. Motion is approved, the agenda is approved, unless anybody has an objection, the agenda is approved. This is very difficult, looking back and forth like this. So I think I'm gonna sit like this, okay? All right, approval of the previous, yes, sir. Yes, sir. I believe so. I don't know, all these meetings that I've seen that have been hybrid, like at the commission, it didn't deter the commissioners from voting on items.
That's correct.
So I believe you are perfectly allowed to vote. Okey-dokey. So approval of the minutes of the previous meeting on August 30th. Has everyone had an opportunity to look at the minutes? And do I have anyone who has any comments or questions on the minutes?
Yes, I do.
Mr. Zeltman?
Just one that's more of a grammatical correction.
Yes, sir.
On page 12, the third paragraph, second sentence. I'll read the way it's written here. He asked if Mr. Travers, he being me, he asked if Mr. Travers' team had inspected a health stop above a parking garage, and then there's another part of the sentence which is not important. Obviously, that doesn't make too much sense. I'm stating that it should read, instead of the A in front of health stop, it should be the, and then after health stop, instead of above A, it should be vehicle. So it reads, he asked if Mr. Travers' team had inspected the health stop vehicle parking garage. And then it goes on. Otherwise, you'd think I'd get up there on the health stop helicopter pad looking at it.
Okay, taking that into consideration, duly noted. Is there anything else, sir?
No, that was the only grammatical
Great.
correction I wanted to make.
All right. Any other comments on the minutes?
Chair.
Yes, ma'am.
I have some corrections from Abby Karam
From Abby. Okay, what's Abby's suggestion?
on page, this is page 3.
Yes, ma'am, on page 3. What?
Under number 2, he has some, the last sentence of the second paragraph under number 2. Instead of staff at department, sustainability continues to follow the same process. Just had it say continues to follow the process.
Take out the word same?
Yes.
Okay.
And then in okay, and then on page 6,
Yep.
the paragraph number 4, and at the end it said where it says between 2016 and 2021 they have addressed roughly $30 million worth of I&I and have implemented an ongoing program to change that from continue fund additional work to reduce it, confirm that as homework is completed, then I will come into the GTL facility, which reduces the need for deep injection wells that have been proposed near the plant.
So you want to eliminate implemented and ongoing program?
So from where it says fund additional work.
Yeah.
Yes, but, in replace that with to continue funding of that effort as we do more, it will be less I&I coming into GTL, and therefore reduces the requirements of 536 work.
That is what it says. I'm not understanding. That is what it says.
Okay. It was changed from, take a look at what you have here. I'm reading what his corrections were. I guess it wasn't formatted, so, okay, that's it.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. So, Peter, you have some questions, concerns? Peter, we're not changing anything there. It was a formatting thing. All right, is everything okay? Everybody on board with the minutes? Can I get a motion to approve the minutes? Peter moves
Second.
and Ralph seconds. Everybody in favor, unless there are some objections, they will be approved. Okay. So, moving on to item number 2 on the agenda, general discussion and comments by committee members. And the very first one is the introduction of our new Public Works Director, who is not here. Unless he's up there. Are you up there? I do not see Alan.
He is delayed, he will be there.
Okay, I saw Alan. He looks great. He looks rested. He looks ready to jump right in.
Until David's no longer with the committee.
Until David's not here anymore. Okay. No, he was very enthusiastic. He was looking forward to the job, and hopefully he will join us in a little while. Which, of course, gives us ample opportunity to follow up on the joint workshop with the commission, which I think we had, in my opinion, we had an absolutely excellent workshop. Having gone to a number of these on various different subjects, I think we engaged them, they were engaged, they were concerned, and they spoke, I think, really from the heart. But I would like to go around the table and ask other people for their views on how it went, and then we're gonna dig into the suggested items that they would like us to look into. So, you wanna start, Peter, since you're in the left-hand corner there? How'd you think it went? Okay, all right, well, we'll talk more about that as we get into the particulars, because that's actually on the agenda. How do we do that? Michael, you, did you get a chance to, were you there, Michael? I don't think you were there. So you didn't get an opportunity to actually, review it on the video? All right, so then this will be very good for you. We'll be able to give this to you. And okay, how about, who else is here? Roosevelt, you were there. What did you think?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I thought the meeting went well, and it wasn't as argumentative as I thought it was going to be, and it was much better than the one we had before. And I think that everybody, including the mayor and McKenzie and those, I think we all pointed in not only the same direction, but the right direction. And if we can just keep going, whether it be this group or a different group, to carrying out what we discussed, I think we'll be okay.
Okie dokie. And Charlie Ladd has just joined us. Let the record show that Mr. Ladd is here. So what do you think, Charlie, of the meeting in general?
My thoughts,
Yes, sir.
I thought the meeting went pretty well. I think that everybody got a little bit bogged down on the condition thing with the attorney, but, you know, I thought otherwise it went pretty well, and, you know, good deeds go away quietly, and bad stuff is highly highlighted. So we open the pipe, we get one dinky little article, and, you know, no more drama.
I know, I was there with,
But I thought the meeting went well, and I feel like the commission appreciated what we're doing and trying to do and watching out for the interest of the city.
okay, cool. Ralph, you want to chime in? What did
I
you
don't want to
think?
be last, but
You want, Ralph wants to go last. Jerry?
It was my first time with the commission on any topic in a workshop setting. I agree with Charlie. I think I'm fascinated by the fact that when you say the word condition, immediately there's a confusion in the air, like a fog. All about that point of you can't stop somebody from building something because of the condition of the infrastructure. No, but you could fix the infrastructure. Right? That's the message. They fly right over the top of that one. Overall, I thought everybody got a chance to say their piece. They respected the work that this operation is doing, and they want us to do more. So
Okay,
onward and upward.
all right. Ralph, you then last.
yeah, that's pretty much echoes my thoughts. I thought the mayor and the commission sort of glassed over the importance of conditions of the infrastructure, specifically the water and the wastewater. But other than that, they seemed upbeat and approving of everything that we're doing and have been doing. And it's really up to them to determine what direction, what course they want us to proceed in.
Okay, which is a good segue into the number of items that are listed on the agenda, which I picked out from the meeting as specific things that they had asked us when we asked them, what do you want us to do going forward? These were the 5 things that came back to us. The first one is, which I thought was interesting, and this one came from Commissioner Moritas. She wanted some input from us on P3 projects, specifically the water treatment plant. She wanted us to look at when it comes back, which of course it's not back yet because it's in that quiet period. But when it does come back, she wanted us to take a look at it and give her some input in terms of the funding. And that is in our wheelhouse because we're supposed to be talking about the condition and the funding of infrastructure. So that would, in my opinion, fall squarely within our current mission. And I was interested that she was interested in pursuing that with us. So we may be, if that thing comes back before we're all gone, that may be something that we'll be looking at. Does anybody have any problems with that? Yes, Ralph.
Well,
Sorry
Hi.
for being so late.
Pull up a chair. As soon as we finish this particular piece, we'll be right with you.
of course, Vice Mayor Moratis recently had problems with the P3 regarding the Lockhart Stadium.
Right.
And she had asked me time back regarding P3s as they apply to water treatment plants.
Mm-hmm.
And I gave her some examples of different types of plants, like in California. I'd been out in California for a few years and had a desalination plant that they had a P3 on, and it was really turned into a disaster because of the agreement, the contract documents and everything didn't protect the desalination plant, so the prices were escalated up and they became much more expensive than the treated water that people get. So obviously it failed long and short. The P3s are defined in certain things and predicated on the type of agreement that the people are involved in. So it doesn't give the investors the upper hand where they can dictate for example, if it applies to a new water treatment plant, a cheaper, less efficient processing components, producing kind of just over the water standards to make it, yet the cost is exorbitant. So it makes a great deal more profit for their investors and such, as opposed to the utility customers.
Yeah, well,
So that's just the red flag.
I'm sure the internet is littered with examples of catastrophes and also successes. So to be, fair,
Yeah, my point is, it's contingent upon the attorneys preparing a good agreement, project managers and contract administrators.
yeah. Okay, well, then it makes sense that she would want some input on that particular element of it. I don't think she was asking us to talk about the engineering or the methodology. It may be that they wanna go in that direction, but I'm only saying that what she mentioned at the hearing was she wanted some input into the financial aspects of it. So that's something that might be on our plate in the near future. And I'm gonna interrupt this agenda item to welcome the new Director of Public Works, Mr. Alan Dodd. Alan, hello, welcome back.
Oh, thank you very much. It is great to be back here. I know a lot of people are online, so I don't know, should be looking this way or that way,
Yeah, I
or
know,
where the camera
it's
is.
difficult.
But I'm very excited to be back here after 3 years, seeing what progress has happened on some of those big issues that we were working on when the task force first was established. And then really setting the path for the future, because you have a very large, challenging CIP that we've laid out for the next 5 years. And it really is gonna take a lot of initiative, a lot of aggressive pushing to keep those projects on schedule, on track, and most importantly, under budget. So that's really gonna be my focus right now, is getting a handle on the CIP. Trying to figure out what are those priorities that we have established as a city, and how are we setting up the processes and the staff to be most efficient at delivering on those commitments that we've made to the city and its residents.
Okay, does anybody wanna ask Alan any questions? I mean, Alan, most of us know him, but you wanna give a little bit of your background, Alan, for those people who are new on the committee? Who don't know your background, I mean, we're just assuming that he's a super guy, but tell us a little bit about
We
it.
know that he's a super guy.
Well, we know, but
That's the haircut. For people who I have not met on the task force, it's great to get to know you. I spent 28 years in the United States Army as an engineer officer, and that's where I got most of my experience when it comes to project delivery, project management, and working with large, complex organizations. My last job was the district engineer, the commander of the Jacksonville District of the Corps of Engineers, where we had geographic responsibility for Florida, the Caribbean Basin. So primarily Puerto Rico and the US Virgin Islands were committed projects. A lot of experience working in the Army overseas, doing construction projects in both Iraq, Afghanistan, and various other fun places to visit. In 2015, I retired out of the Army. I said I was getting a little bit too old, and I started here in Fort Lauderdale as the assistant director over the engineering division. I did that for about a year and a half, and then I became the deputy director for Public Works. And about a little over 3 years ago, I had an offer to go to the city of Miami as the Public Works director. And actually, it was the Department of Resilience and Public Works, so I went down there for 3 years and learned a very different aspect of what Public Works does, because there it's more getting into permitting and setting standards, platting, things like that. I also ran the transportation network, the trolleys there, and ended up being the chief resilience officer, so I got into all aspects of resiliency, either from the adaptation or the mitigation side. After 3 years in Miami, I got a chance to come back home to Fort Lauderdale, and now I'm here. And I'm
Okay.
excited about it.
good, that's great. Okay, so We just started talking about our workshop with the commission. And,
Sorry.
Okay, hi. Let the record show that Ms. Scott has joined the meeting.
By me.
So Alan just introduced himself. You know Alan, so I don't have to go through this again. And Shane has joined us as well. My goodness, I think we got a full house. Excellent. So we are going over the, before, when Alan, we interrupted going over our agenda when Alan came in to greet him. We were going over the workshop, and we all went around the table and we gave our view on how we thought it went. And now we're actually digging into the individual items that were brought up for future work.
Do you want my view?
Yes, please. I was just
Really
gonna ask
good.
both of you to say a
Go
few
ahead, go
words
ahead.
on your view.
It was enlightening, but I think it went very well. And definitely came out with some new thoughts.
Good. We'll get to your new
Yeah.
thoughts right away. Okay, Jackie, what did
I
you
thought
think?
it went good. I don't know how it really ended up. I think they're still puzzled to what to do with us. That's my impression.
Okay.
But I thought it was good, but I missed everybody else's thoughts.
Yes, you did, and we can't go back over it again. I think the general consensus was it went well. They don't understand condition, and condition is still a big issue.
Oh, yeah, they're all into condition.
They're all into condition, and so that's number 3 on our list of the 5 things. So what we're doing now, you got an agenda there, Jack?
I think so.
Okay, we're following up on items 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 from the workshop. Okay, so we started to talk about reviewing and commenting on the P3 projects because Commissioner Moritas specifically said she would like us to weigh in on the financial aspects of the P3 for the water treatment plant when we get it. Assuming that we get it before we're gone, or the next group, or somebody, she wants some help from an infrastructure task force like group to give her some insight into the financial implications of the P3. And then we were gonna start talking about the next item. And do you have any comments on that, Jack?
Engage on potential changes to the 40-year inspection.
Well, that's the second item, we're not on that yet, the P3.
What do you want me to weigh in on? I'm
I don't know,
confused.
do you want, I'm asking do people think that that's not our job, don't wanna get involved?
I mean, I think our job is what the city commission wants us to
There you
do.
go, all right, well, she said, let's do it, so we're doing it, right?
Right.
All right. Second thing, engage on potential changes to the 40-year inspection, and that came out of nowhere for me. That
Where'd
was
that come
directly from the mayor,
Probably the email that I sent them on a report, which I subsequently provided to the board here.
Oh, really? Okay. Anyway, I think it's an absolutely wonderful idea myself personally. What could be more in our wheelhouse than commenting and talking, getting involved in making sure that buildings don't fall down?
But when you talk about a 40-year inspection, we're talking about city-owned property?
He was not clear.
And are we talking about learning how you guys currently do the 40-year inspection? Should we do it more often? Is that the whole
Let me-
gamut of this?
Let me comment, give a little information
Would you?
on that. Yeah, with buildings, such as city-owned buildings, the city is responsible for their own inspections. One government agency can't inspect another government agency's building. A lot of people don't know that, but that's the case. As far as generally speaking, there's a 20-year inspection, there's a 40-year inspection, and then the subsequent 10-year inspections after the 40-year. That's how it's currently going. I've done some work regarding multi-story buildings. I was contract administrator in Broward County for their 9-story consolidated rental car facility garage. And had to be aware of certain items. I'm not gonna get in all the requirements on that. But long and short, with the current Surfside problems that had happened, it's becoming apparent that there is problems with the foundations and the structures. A lot of these buildings have the antiquated old rebar in it and concrete.
Right.
It's been in there, and with the increase in tides, saltwater intrusion is even more prevalent coming in and going further inland. And the problems are such that they, and I've provided this to Broward County and to the state already, and they've given me feedback that they thought some of my suggestions were pretty good. I'm not trying to break my arm back on it,
No, I'm
but
happy.
I've got some little experience, let's put it that way. My suggestions were quick and easy, was maybe in the first 2 years that there should be an inspection. And I mentioned this to Gerald here. While the developer, the builder, is still on the hook with his liability insurance. So if there's any structural or design problems, you catch him from the get-go. And then more so in the coastal areas, you may want to consider going with a 5-year inspection instead of waiting for a full 20-year or a 10-year. And this is something they have to figure out more than my posturing. But long and short, they need to be more intense in their testing to determine such things as what happened on the
Champagne.
Hello Stop. And I walked in there over 2.5 years ago, going to another thing, and I saw on the roof where the vehicles are parked, a gap, water in there, and it's obviously a lot of people will say, "Oh, it's just water." Well, there's structural steel underneath, and the water gets in there, and that crack, it gets expanding because of the steel, when it's tuberculation or rusting, it'll expand out and push the concrete and break it up. And there's all sorts of impacts that could follow. I don't want to get into detail. I'm taking too much time as it is right now. Those are the things that I think need to be looked at in the long and short. And we can do what we can do in our capacity to.
I agree with everything you're saying. I don't know if I agree with being that technical as a board. However, I don't know, I think, Marilyn, we need to ask Dean what he was thinking, and I think we need to ask staff, what are you guys thinking of potential improvements to 40-year inspections? I think I'm looking more at
we're
the
looking
process.
for process things, and I wanted to point out to everybody, and to Alan, in case you don't know it, at our last meeting or the meeting before it, we had
John Travers.
John Travers from, and he gave us a whole routine, so if we're not coming to this without, some kind of background. But Jackie brings up a good point in terms of the mayor wasn't clear on what he wanted, and perhaps has he expanded it to you, or I don't know.
That's what I want to point out, is that the 40-year inspection is really dealing with primarily private buildings, although the city as a building owner also has to adhere to those requirements. Public Works does not have any involvement in that, other than if we get tasked to contract and have a 40-year inspection done. We don't, that is the Department of Sustainable Development and the building
It's Anthony,
officials
right?
that oversee that entire program. So if you want to have those conversations, we need to have them start attending this meeting for when you're talking. That is outside of our purview.
And one more thing that you said that I disagree with is if you have a contractor to come in and build a building, and I may be wrong, so you can call me out on this, but he builds a building, he goes by the code, it's inspected by everybody, it's approved. I would feel guilty going in 2 years later and saying you didn't do it right.
Yeah, that is a problem,
That's
that's
scary to me.
problematic.
Well, before the liability insurance,
Yeah, but I mean,
you
that
can
needs to
look-
be during the process by the staff.
Yeah, the
that's what
staff
I'm
has
thinking.
to do that, right.
Yeah, but before the thing is CO'd or something, not like go back in again, oh God. What a
I
mess.
could just see the condos going crazy. Somebody came in and.
My point was, do it in the first couple of years if there's a major structural error, deficiency, as opposed to waiting
If they
20
bring it-
years for your first inspection.
Yeah, I mean, someone needs to report that there's a crack and there's rebar sticking out and maybe there's spalling. And you shouldn't get spalling in 2 years, right?
Yeah, well, I would point out that Gerald, as a representative of the chamber, or is it as a representative of the town forum?
I just represented me.
Okay, whatever. don't you tell them
I'm
about the
glad you
forum,
graduated to that.
why don't you tell them about the forum that we're having tomorrow or the next day on
Thursday
this?
morning, the Tower Forum we're doing got a couple of architects and civil engineers and professors to do a panel discussion.
Is Tony Abate one of
And
them?
Tony's the moderator.
Oh, I'm not surprised.
All right, Jackie.
He's-
No, it's
Moving
nothing.
along,
I
no,
was
it's
saying
moving
that.
along.
It's a good one.
Yes,
Marilyn?
yes,
Marilyn, this is,
yes.
you're correct that the mayor did bring this up. I just wanted to point out that it's a Broward County, the 40-year is a Broward County requirement, and they have a big working group looking into this. So if we're going to get involved in this, personally, I would like to see, have access to the minutes of that set of meetings that's currently ongoing.
And perhaps maybe even more than that, someone from that committee come and talk with us, perhaps, if they're willing.
Yes.
If they're willing, if they're not willing, I mean, we can't force anybody to do that. I think there's this big problem in that the mayor was not specific in terms of whether he was talking about what would be really within our bailiwick is city-owned buildings,
Right,
but did he want us to go
Let me
in the
further?
process.
Let me get back to Jackie and answer
Yeah.
your question. It's a municipality in the statute, and that means City of Fort Lauderdale's buildings is the City of Fort Lauderdale.
right,
In the unincorporated areas, it'll be Broward County.
right.
So that's just, we're not jumping out and doing,
No, I get it. I just don't wanna get into micromanaging the process
no,
from the
and
perspective
I
of
went too
technical. I
far.
can't speak to it.
That's not our job.
Right,
We're
right,
just- I just wanna try to explain.
But if you're thinking about process, if we engage the people who are doing this, the Broward County people, some of the city people who may be involved on that committee, some private people who may be involved in that committee, I think we could probably provide some recommendations or comments on, do we think that enough is being done? What is being done? Is anything being left out?
I'm guessing that committee is looking into, should that whole rule or ordinances or whatever be changed?
I would
Right.
imagine.
I imagine that's what they're tasked with.
Let me
Now,
answer
I don't know how
Charlie
we get
that.
involved in that from, either we could say, yes, we love our buildings and our concerns, if you wanna go to 30 years, we agree. But who are, I don't know.
We don't have anything to base it on.
Right.
I know.
But unless you have some kind of documentation, proof that after so many years that the concrete and the steel have deteriorated, and instead of waiting 20 or 40 years, it occurs earlier. So we can't
Right.
really intelligently recommend anything to 30 to 30 years.
Right. I think this one, we need some additional guidance from the mayor, almost to the point of where we should send him a communication
Yeah, what did you
saying,
have in mind?
what did you have in mind? Because otherwise, I don't think we should be spinning our wheels on
Yeah,
this.
I
You're just
agree.
gonna want it, for me, I really appreciated the note that you wrote about this whole. To me, there's something that subtends how many years it is before the inspection. It matters, but it's arbitrary. To me, what matters and what's missing is when you find something, you have to fix it. When you think about what happens prior to the C of O, there's all kinds of codes and inspections and sign-offs and there's more people sign off on a
Right.
building than sign the
Right.
Declaration of Independence. All right?
Mhm.
After that,
You're on your own.
do what you want.
I had-
I agree with what you're saying, is that you have to be more proactive, like I was mentioning earlier, before you got here. Over 2.5 years ago, I happened to go to an event, and I parked on the rooftop of that,
Yeah, I remember that
Hellestop
story.
parking garage, vehicle parking garage, and I couldn't shimmy up on top of the helicopter pad. But I saw something, I reported it, and where does it go from there? And I had got back to, at that time, the Public Works Director, and he says, yeah, I told so-and-so, and they're taking care of it. Well, 2.5 years later, I happened to pull up on a Google aerial and happened to see in 2021, there was still, I even have a copy of that here, still a water puddle sitting over on that southwest corner of that parking space that I was in. And nothing had been done. So the more you let something go, the more it's gonna deteriorate and cause greater ramifications in the structural aspect of.
Yeah, but you, when you brought up the question of when you find something, something has to be done. But also, who do you tell? Who do you tell?
See something, say something.
To who?
Whose building is it?
Who do you tell? Who-
You,
what-
you
who do
actually
you call?
report it, you actually call, and what I would do is I would probably call maybe the mayor's office, I'd talk to Scott, hold on a second.
Yeah,
And I'd say, there's a potential problem, and they're gonna pass it along to the department that's responsible.
one would hope.
I had an issue where I saw a water main leaking. I was going to dinner at Eddie V's. So it was at Las Olas and Northeast First Avenue next to the museum. So I emailed, what's his name? The former director,
Raj?
Raj. They had somebody out there the next day and it actually turned into a repair. But I got so sick of watching the water leak for a couple days in a row. It wasn't a bad one, but they jumped right on it.
You know, it's true, because I've called Omar, haven't I, on stuff, and he's like on it.
No, I'm the staff is very responsive. Let's say that they're very responsive to us because they know us. But if you're John Doe and you see something and you don't know who to call, and maybe a notification
The
process.
city
is
hotline?
something.
Yeah, I have
Well-
called 828-8000 and they're responsive.
They're very good. I mean, when it comes to potholes and things like that, the guys and gals are very, very good. But when it comes to something that would require a budget amendment and an allocation of funds, that's a big deal, and that is not something that people are as responsive to as quickly as they could be. So again,
We're
we
probably
need to-
getting too deep in the woods on this, aren't we, a little bit?
Probably. Okay, so let's move on to the other ones. Number 3. We have to solve this though. We have to decide whether we're gonna do it or not do it, but let's let our brains rest a while, okay? Number 3 was how to consider condition, not in the ordinance, but administratively. I think we have all exhausted ourselves and come to the conclusion that it's not in the ordinance, we're not doing anything in the ordinance, but the commissioners were very, very anxious to find something, despite council's counsel, that you shouldn't do it.
They seem to all believe the condition has gotta be looked at in some way during the process. At the last P and Z meeting, we were approving a project, and I believe they had to, one of the things on there was they had to repair what did they have to repair on there? Remember the project that came before us last month? Maybe not. Anyway, a new line or something, I forget what it was.
Well, one way to do it would be to try to encourage the staff to create a report of stuff we already know. So in other words, you could say, and I use Victoria Park as an example just because I lived there and I lived through it, but the Victoria Park area now has new water and sewer, new line pipes are replaced, etc. There's other neighborhoods where we know that they're up for work because they're on the list of the weakest neighborhoods. So to come up with like 10 or 15 different districts and say, okay, this is a district that has the following challenges. This is a district where everything's new. That would be a start, at least, for people, the policymakers, to see that says, okay, if there's a bunch of activity in the beach, and they say the beach has the following challenges and the areas that need ultimate replacement. That to me is at least a start on understanding the conditions when you look at each project.
That's interesting, yeah, Ralph, and then Jackie. No, Sean hasn't spoken. Let's hear from
Go
Sean.
for it.
One very simple way, every time there's a new project, they're doing a new water service tap. And either the city's self-performing it or contractors performing it with the city there, the inspector observing. Every water tap, you get a coupon, what they call a coupon. It's the cutout from the side of the pipe. And it's telling it, if there's the condition of the pipe. So they're doing that regularly, so they have that information at hand every time there's a new tap, which is almost every development.
Oh, that's interesting. I didn't know that, guys. You do that. Does somebody
I
keep
did.
the little pieces?
I did notice the last one I was at, Scott Van Loo kept,
It's hard to TV.
kept the coupon and keep it. That's
That's a great
the
observation.
easiest that I could come up with.
And the city pretty much does all the taps now. They don't allow you to do them yourself.
They do.
The,
Jackie?
at the last P and Z meeting, I brought it up to staff, you know, before we voted on the project, I said, can you tell me the condition of the of the system? And they were like, okay, hold on, they're shuffling through papers trying to answer, and they said, well, yeah, the capacity's fine. I said, yeah, but what about the condition? Oh, well, we don't really, you know, so, you know, I'm gonna continue to bring it up at every P and Z meeting,
We have
so that people
definitely,
start realizing we need to be looking at this. Not to vote yes or no on the project based upon that, but to bring it to light.
I think you're walking a fine line, because they were so adamant that condition can't
No,
be.
I agree,
Right,
but still, if we don't verbalize it, we're not gonna make it a priority and make sure we realize that where it is in the pipeline maybe has to be altered based on things. We gotta do this one first.
yeah, and I think that's definitely needs to be done, and I think it's the responsibility of Public Works. And I don't think it can be considered even at P and Z or commission, because
It
then it's,
can't be considered from a voting perspective. I was
But
just bringing it to light.
right, but if
We're
you
not-
bring it
we
up, it's
can't-
gonna be considered,
No,
right?
we can't vote something up or down based on condition.
Right,
And I
Yeah.
think that,
but I feel like it's
Yeah,
in the
but-
back of your mind.
but Commissioner Moritas and also Commissioner McKenzie acknowledged that they have the Hazen and Sawyer maps, the condition maps, you know, the ones that are high risk of failure.
Mhm.
And they acknowledged in public that they use those maps. And they refer to those maps when they're looking at a project to see what the situation is. Now, the attorney will probably have a heart attack when he hears that. But you know, you can't run a government if you don't know what the condition is. So I would like to take this conversation to Alan and ask Alan, we have beaten this thing up a long time, and we all understand the constraints and challenges. Have you I mean, you just got here, I don't wanna put you on the spot, but you've been here before and you know condition issues. So can you think of, and can you put your thinking cap on and think of ways that we can institutionalize some form of a condition reporting or condition monitoring so that we can get this information in a general sense into the process, not in the ordinance, but in a general sense. The floor is yours.
Okay, so when infrastructure is put in the ground, for the most part, you can't see it or evaluate it very easily after that point. It's buried. So things like when you're putting in a tap, you can get some indicators, or if you have a break. The Reese report, the Comprehensive Utility Strategic Master Plan, identified high-risk areas based on a lot of empirical factors, age of the pipe, other conditions, right? But it's very subjective on how you calculate that. In the future, what we are moving towards is an asset management system where you have a GIS map of all the assets as they're being maintained, or you have reports of different new infrastructure projects going in. You're able to keep track of them, and it will help to identify what are the next projects that we need to do to address the worst first. And that's what you're really trying to get to, is getting rid of your highest risk areas and fix them before they have a blowout, you have a catastrophic failure. So we are moving towards that. The asset management system is the tool that we will be using to get there.
Excellent.
that was being mapped, right?
Yeah,
So Marilyn,
mapping
Wait a minute.
the water and the wastewater utilities, which is required under the consent orders or the consent decrees.
Right.
I'm gonna
Just a second, Peter, we'll be right with you.
just gonna bring up something that I discovered,
I think it was
and
Roosevelt.
I don't know if it was
Was
your
Roosevelt?
Public Works is in the storm water business as well. And been involved in the storm drainage, both the exfiltration type of drainage systems, which are usually more inland, and then the positive drainage that usually is going outward. Well, I found out through that the city has used a design that is not in compliance with the stormwater drainage or anything like that. They have is basically instead of exfiltration type drainage systems, they have holding tanks. And I thought that the exfiltration trench, thanks, but I know that the exfiltration trench have a couple lengths of slotted pipe. They have exfiltration gravel or rock and then a fabric around it so that the water collected from the streets and whatnot are exfiltrated eventually out of the system, and then it percolates down the ground. Well, come to find out, and this is over in Imperial Point, I kept seeing all this water ponding all the time. There are no exfiltration pipe on that. It essentially works as a holding tank. Now, would this be part of addition or lack of compliance that should be looked at? And right now, I've spoken with Dr. Nancy Gassman, and she says, yeah, we're setting up projects to do that. This to me typifies something that the staff should be aware of or be apprised of, so that there can be some corrective measures instituted.
Just Peter's been got his hand up for quite some time. Peter, you're on.
Yes, what I heard,
I'm sorry, Peter, hold on just a second. We have an answer to a question.
Rio Vista, we just did exfiltration right there. So we know about it. In that area, we might not have done a project lately with it, we will have to do it, but we know that it's important, and in that project, we just did that.
Okay, so you had to pour into and do all that. Okay, well,
We had swales, retaining water going through the pipe and going to the.
excellent.
Yes, so Peter, you're up.
so what I heard at the meeting with the commission was that the city attorney did not want any report on condition to explicitly travel with a development application.
Correct.
And for the reasons that he outlined. And I think that we find ourselves in a situation where we have to be reliant on staff, and specifically now I'd be looking to Alan. What disturbs me, has disturbed me in the past, and Jackie repeated the same thing again, she's on the P&Z, that it's a large organization, the city, and the people looking at development applications are physically separate from those people controlling consultant contracts like Hayes and Sawyer, who've done the report on high risk, medium risk, etc. So I feel we have to be reliant on staff to get condition to the forefront of the staff's minds so that they don't overlook it when they are reviewing a development application.
That's well said.
I think what Alan just mentioned makes a lot of sense to me. And I don't know if you remember, or you, wait, yes, go
The
on.
only thing about Marilyn is that the asset management program has been ongoing quite a long time. And we have this quite specific problem issue that I think can be addressed more readily and quickly by a staff procedure and policy.
Okay, that was one of the things that we had recommended, a staff procedure and policy. Can I just respond to the asset management? There we go. I have always been a big fan of this asset management thing, from the beginning, from the consultants, from the consent order. And we actually had a presentation about the asset management plan in its infancy. It had just started. And I noticed, and I brought this up, that that's really cool, but that really depends upon, like, data in, data out, okay? And it depends on a
Garbage in, garbage out.
long-term commitment. And, those are wonderful plans, and I've been a part of wonderful, plans like that. And they look good for about a year, 2 years, and then all of a sudden the enthusiasm drops off and the funding drops off. And it was a big waste of time, which I sincerely hope does not befall our asset management plan here. So one of the things that we might want to be able to do is make sure that the commission gets a presentation every year of the asset management plan. And in surfacing that, the asset management plan has discovered the following things that we should be, be very careful about or be aware of. And if they see it every year, okay, and it's not in connection to a project, it's a general understanding of the system, not only will they have the information on condition, but they will also know that they have to keep funding this. And then that this is an important part of our process. And this one you don't skimp on, you don't cut this out of the budget when things get, bad. And that was just my thought when you said asset management. I said, woo, bells went off. Maybe that's what we could do.
I think there's two parts to that. The first part is the asset management system doesn't do any good unless you have good data going in and you have people who are actively using it. And we're looking at having dedicated staff that will be, their job will be running the program, the software, providing those reports and letting us know on a regular basis where we are. And helping us to use that as the basis to tell the commissioners every year as part of the CIP, we are recommending these projects go forward and why, and using that data to support our recommendations as a staff, because there's a lot of funding needs out there, but we should do it based on some
Science.
that we're calculating. The second part on it is getting to the capacity analysis of the systems. There are 3 public works employees who work full-time over at DSD. 1 water, 2 are water, wastewater, 1 is stormwater funded. And before every commission meeting, they're coming over to me and we're talking through those developments as far as what are the projects, what the capacity analysis, but also where they are. So then we can talk with the rest of the staff and make sure that we're looking at the future development as we're considering those priorities as well. So it's trying to get a little bit closer aligned with DSD as they're making those recommendations, and then getting to a science statistics-based reason to make those recommendations to the commission and keep them informed about where we need to be investing.
Right, but not in relationship to a particular project, but in relationship to like drainage basins or,
Yes.
something like that.
Yes,
Yeah, and
absolutely. It's about how we maintaining the city, not how are we just supporting a particular development, because the capacity analysis that we do talks specifics on the building, but we need to look at it in the bigger picture of a community, of a neighborhood, and how are we maintaining that infrastructure as well.
Okay, Jackie?
I have a question, then I want to make a comment. Where are we in that asset management program? How far are we along from getting our assets all cataloged and knowing where we are?
I believe right now they have been finalizing an RFP for it, and
So we haven't started?
It has not been gone out for solicitation. The RFP is.
That's for the water. We're working on the wastewater.
Okay.
Are you asking about the wastewater part?
Yeah, I'm looking at that whole asset management program that we've been hearing about.
There's the wastewater, that was part of the wastewater consent order, that's supposed to go live pretty soon, right? No,
When you say go live, do we already know what everything is?
Yeah.
Yeah, they've been
Okay.
adding all
So now you're going to the,
actually run the software.
okay, good.
That is gonna tell you, pipe needs to be replaced 10 years from now, whatever.
So you've cataloged it is what you're
We're
saying?
cataloging, but
Okay.
the water consent order that he's talking about, that's a different program
Okay,
that is due in a couple of years.
Actually, that was a question that Ben raised at Commissioner Sorensen raised at the workshop. And he said, where was the water thing? And he was aware. I'm amazed. I should be amazed. I mean, he follows these things, but he specifically said, where is the cataloging of the water system? And, you
And I
got up
said
there and you
that-
said, we're working on it.
Yeah, and I sent an update to all the commissioners through Chris, explaining where we are on each one.
Yeah,
So-
and what is taking so long? We've been, with all due respect,
For the water.
you've been telling us that, we're working on the water. We've had presentations from the guy who was doing the working on the water like 2 years ago. So how close are we?
I have to look at the table, but there is a lot of tasks that have been completed already.
But
Did you
you
say
said
you're
we're sending out
50%,
wait a minute.
75%?
It depends, they're like, I think there are 8 or 9 tasks, and there is like half of them that have been completed.
Yeah, but you just said we're putting out an RFP to do the water.
That's specifically for the water
Yeah,
mapping.
I'm speaking about the water now. Let's talk
Yeah.
water.
That's the water mapping.
Yes.
But the water consent order has like 9, 10
Yeah.
different tasks.
Yeah, and that's good, and we followed it, we got all the valves turned, and we did all the things in that's done. But we're talking now, planning for the future.
So the water mapping is due in July of 2023. That's the deadline.
That's an atlas sheet, then you'll have it completely, and then you can, as I was kidding with Raj when he was here, I said back in the 70s, I did a Hardy Cross method on there, and they said, yeah, Ralph, you probably still have your swag on that. Yeah.
Yeah, but the water consent order started about a year ago.
Alright, so we're gonna make the deadline in the water consent order to have it, to have the contract let or the work finished.
The work finished.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
but
that will go into the asset management system in 2023.
So all this talk about condition, and from my viewpoint, is really based upon giving the public confidence that we know the condition of our system. And if we approve a project at P and Z, even though that criteria isn't necessary, it'd be awfully nice if we were able to also know the condition as this thing passes. It gives people confidence that everybody knows what they're doing. So that from my perspective, that's my interest.
And the point that you bring up, public confidence, wouldn't it be great every year to have at the commission a presentation of the asset management plan? So people can see that we're looking at this. A lot of this has to do with the fact that, you guys are good guys and you're working together and you're working hard and but nobody knows. Nobody knows that you're working on this. So
Yeah,
I
the
think
public, you need to get more.
we need to
Good
get
job.
more.
and we have a monthly update to the city manager on the consent order for the wastewater, and also now we included the water.
Yeah, well, you should. He's the manager. He should know. He should get a monthly update. But that Chris knows doesn't mean that, everybody else in the world knows. And they still take the perspective that, they don't know what they're doing, da-da-da-da-da-da. So we wanna try and find a way not only to bring it to the commission's attention on a regular basis, but to let the public know that somebody is actually working on it. The asset management plan is like a godsend to you all. It's a godsend to everybody, if it works.
It's
If
a
it
normal way of
works.
doing business.
Yeah, I mean, if we were running a big business here, that's what we would do. We'd look at our assets and we'd review our assets every year and find out, are things going well? And I remember the guy who used to sit here in the very beginning, who was the guy from Auto Nation? Do you remember his name? He was wonderful. He was one of our first members of the infrastructure task force. I can't remember his name. But anyhow, he was an executive from Auto Nation. And his first thoughts when we went through this was, if I was running a business that's running $500 million worth of projects, I wouldn't have a staff of 40 people. I'd have a staff of hundreds of people running that project. And so we have this is what, before you run, I was bringing this up because you actually expressed this, that your job is to get these projects through the pipeline, to get it done. We keep shoving projects in, and there's only so much capacity to get those projects done, so
And we have all the capacity we need, remember?
I guess that kind of capacity. But you may not have the kind of capacity you need. So if there is something that we can do in terms of our talking about capacity of getting the projects done, that we can help you out, please bring it to us and we'll bounce it around. And Peter has another question before you go.
So I wrote down that Commissioner Sorensen said that he would like an annual, what do you call it, an annual physical of infrastructure. And he saw that as a job for the ITF. So I think that, dovetails with what you're saying about the asset management plan, that we should regard the presentation on the asset management plan as, or the annual physical as part of the asset management plan presentation.
Thank you, Peter. Yes, he did. He did say that specifically. And he wasn't thinking asset management at the time because I don't think it was on the table, but he was thinking of, how about just a report, an annual report on the state of the infrastructure, or something like that. So that's another possibility. And the asset management
That's
could
a
be
big,
part of it.
that's a gigantic task.
Mhm.
I think annually is like, whoa, you'd have to hire probably 4 people to do an annual thing. But I mean, I think it's a good idea,
Yeah, it is a good idea.
you know, good idea,
It
but
keeps it away from
annually is a
any
little bit
specific,
scary.
keeps it away from any specific development.
No.
They're gonna keep it, you know, you get too much detail, then it's
Well, and if you make it, if
my
you,
problem, I
and
always.
if you do an annual inspection of every property we own,
I don't think he's talking about that. I think he's talking
oh, about the water and the,
of water and sewer.
Sorry.
Oh,
Maybe the
yeah,
more
My mind-
severely,
my mind
maybe
left.
the more severe ones, like the same application they use for like sidewalks, the more,
yeah,
the
sorry.
sidewalks that are more critically,
I
Thresholds.
think what Alan said is that they're doing it monthly, right? They're updating your action item list.
Yeah,
rather
yes,
than
and,
monthly.
and we have regular discussions with all of the commissioners. Actually, I think since I've been here, every single week, we've met with each commissioner individually.
That's great.
Because of sunshine, but I think that it's not unrealistic to expect that there will be an infrastructure discussion with the commission at least once a year. When I was here before, I think we were in front of them more often than that, talking about infrastructure. And I think that would be a pretty easy commitment for me to make to you, that we could have that type of a discussion with them on a yearly basis.
Oh, look,
But I think
making
that's
progress.
probably too long to be talking about infrastructure in general, because my job, our job, is to keep infrastructure on the forefront. And so having a informal and formal dialogue with them about commission priorities, where we are as far as delivering on those priorities, and current status of the city. But I think at least once a year, we can have a more formal, just a overview summary of where we are and where we're going as your home. And we can talk individually about how to shape that type of a discussion over the next year.
Excellent, we're making progress.
That's great.
Excellent,
And
okay.
I apologize, but actually I'm supposed to be in a meeting with Commissioner Sorensen right now.
You're leaving on a high note. You're
Okay,
leaving on a high
Thank
note. Thank you.
Robert.
Okay, so,
Commissioner Sons.
that's good, no. Okay, so here we go, with a little progress is being made.
One last thought.
One last thought.
I find another fascination that I've had in this discussion today and at the workshop was that had more attention been paid to the condition in the past, we probably wouldn't have become the land of exploding pipes.
Oh, sure.
I agree.
I mean, we all accept that.
Well said.
I think everybody accepts that there was a period of inattention. Okay, number 4, discussion of the proposed and subsequent approved CIP, Office of Management and Budget. We have today with us staff from Office of Management and Budget, and this one's for you, Roosevelt, because you asked the question about tracking projects, and when a project gets abandoned or finished or switched to another source, where does the money go? And Laura Reese, God bless her, she spent the week answering my questions about this, because I sent her a whole list of questions. And they were all based on this document that's in your background,
That's
okay? And this is the document which is called the Proposed FY 2022, FY 2026 Community Investment Plan, dated May 7th, 2021. The reason that this is important, and this is coming up here, okay, is that this is the document that describes what projects were taken out of the budget, where did the money go, and what projects were put in the budget. This is not the adopted one, this is the one with the red lines in it, okay, which explains to you where everything went. So the questions I asked her were based upon this document. And would the staff like to introduce themselves and come up here and explain how you read this document?
Hi, I'm Diane, the budget commission manager. This is Megan Dunn.
Would you like to come up here and point?
So we list all the projects that we have, and it shows whether they have unspent dollars and available dollars. The difference between the unspent and the available is that some of the projects have encumbrances on them, so they're not available. So basically, the available funds would be after the encumbrances, so that's a purchase order. And then what we have is 5 years of a budget, and basically 22 will drop into our financial system for the upcoming year. And this is the proposed, so that means that this is where it is at that point in time. If you can look at the grants fund, they're kind of bolded. So those would be new items that we would put into the budget if it makes it along the way. If we end up taking one out, we'll scratch it off, we'll put a cross through. So if you move up a couple pages, you'll see a cross through. There's one.
This
See
one,
the
okay.
470? So that's the department taking out some money for some seawalls, but that means that they would have put it in someplace else.
Put it in someplace else where?
Where's else? Where
Where's
does else
else?
live?
Where the, yes,
Madam Chair,
yes, Roosevelt.
can you have her just to explain the one on seawalls for, started off at 873,000 and then I guess they made available 491,000 and then they X through, which means I guess they're not gonna do it.
No.
I want to know then where is the other $382,000? Where did it go?
So the 470,000 is in a couple of lines down below. It's 12330, which is that city-owned seawall restoration. You can see the 470 in the outer years. In 2022, it just got added up top, all the way up top. The second, right under the 470. See that 1, 2?
Yeah,
So that means, see how it's bold? We added that money to that line.
we added that money to this line.
Yeah.
It's up, one line up.
Okay, so you
No, we
took it
took
out
it
of
out,
this
we took
line
it out.
and you put it in this line.
Right.
And you took it out of this line and you put it in this line? Okay, so we wouldn't know that until you told us that, so that's good to know.
But I mean, that's what the departments are pretty much doing.
So that's the answer. The answer is they are not putting any more money in this line, seawall maintenance, and they're putting all the money in city-owned seawall restore replace. That's just a movement. That's not new money. It's actually just changing in the name.
Just changing it into a different type of project. The scope on the project could be different, so that's why they put it there.
Gotcha.
There are some times, like if you go down to the fire public safety capital enhancement, we put in $2.2 million in fiscal 24. That one,
Down here?
no, it's right here.
Here,
Up
up.
over to the right.
Public safety enhancement.
Right, so we put $2.2 million in last year.
Yeah.
That one ended up that it didn't meet the requirements of capital projects, so that would have to be operating, so that one came up.
So that just came out in the future years. Okay, so that was the future year money.
Right, generally, we try to make everybody keep the same dollars in going forward. They really have to explain or move it to a project that's consistent in order to move it someplace else.
Okay, all right, and so can we go back down to the first page? One of the questions I asked Laura was, all of these things that are in black, this is the source of the funds.
That's right, those
Okay.
are fun.
So that's the first thing you have to realize when you read this. That these are grant funds, all of these are grant funds from here to here. All of these are from the building permit funds. So from the building permit funds, we do land asset management systems project. We spend this amount of money, we spend this amount of money, we spend Greg Bruton Center. Is that to rebuild?
That's for the building.
That's for the building. So we're gonna fund all of the building of that building from those funds, not
Right,
from
and then
capital funds.
Correct, and you can't cross fund.
Okay, and we've already allocated that money, okay? We've already said we're gonna do the project. We've already committed to spend $18 million, okay? I assume that's because the contract has been signed to build the
There could have
building.
been some design work done or something was done. So they spent a little bit of the
They
money.
spent but they still got this amount of money to spend, all right? So this is gonna be the money that they're gonna spend to actually do the building.
Right.
And we don't need any more money. We've all decided we don't need any more money. So that's how you read this chart. This is what we think it's gonna cost. This is what we have left to spend on it. And if there is no more money going out, then we think we got enough money.
Right.
If there's more money going out, let's take one, this one here, okay? Let's go with facilities assessment. We've already allocated $2,018,081. We've already spent $2,081,000, okay? But we know that we're gonna need more,
Right, so
Every
that,
year.
that's a particular project that we put money into, we commit every single year,
Every
we
single
put,
year, there's
we
gonna be
put money
this,
into.
this, and eventually when we get out to 5 years, we will have spent this.
Right, but, correct,
But we could spend more.
we could spend more.
We could find out in this year, oh my God, we need $3 million. Or we could find out in this year, we don't need to spend it this year. So everything past this is estimates.
Well, the
That's
22,
just
the
like-
22 would be something that we'd be putting into our adopted book.
Everything
So
past
23
this.
forward would be,
This is all our best guess estimates. But up to here, up to 22 is real money that we have. Okay, so let's go down to the bottom. Roosevelt, does that answer your question about where does the money go?
Well, not exactly. I understand the one that she explained, but where a project is canceled
Let's go.
and we don't have any out years, where did that money go? You had $1 million and we did $100,000 worth of work and the project was canceled. Now we got $900,000 left. Where do the money go and how do we track it? That's the type of situation that I want to know about.
say what you said again, just repeat what you said.
If he's having trouble with his phone, let me repeat it. Take for instance the Ocean Drive Bridge, okay? We moved that money, we moved that project into the surtax dollars. So the line that says Ocean Drive Bridge
It's just funded. in a
is
different-
crossed out,
Right, but
it's crossed
that's
out.
because it's funded from a
Somewhere
different
else.
fund.
but it went to another fund that is not even in our control. It's being funded by the county. So Roosevelt asked, where did the
Right, but
$3.4 million go?
is it something that we're actually funding in 22 or is that an oat year?
Oh, it was all already in the budget previously. It was already it was under this line. It was under unspent and available.
Then it would fall to what we call fund balance.
Fund
And or
balance.
the department could have brought it up in a budget amendment and moved that money to a different project. That could happen. We do 12 budget amendments throughout the year. We move capital project money, transfer between projects that might have had money that they didn't need. They came in under budget, or they might need more money.
Thank you, and that's what Laura explained to me that was very illuminating. There's two ways the money gets moved. It's either by resolution from one project to another project, or it goes into this unspent balance. And I was not clear from her, where is this unspent balance? Because if you go down to the bottom.
Well, it wouldn't be on this anymore because it wouldn't be in a project anymore. It would be at what we call the fund level. And the fund would actually have like the bank. The bank would have an amount that's left.
Okay.
At the end of the year, finance does their CAFR and they tell us how much funds are left in the balance for those funds, so we can then appropriate it either during this fiscal year or in the next fiscal year to put in a new project.
So at some place, in a bank someplace, is a fund,
Well,
A bank
money
account.
fund, yeah.
a bank account
Then
somewhere.
you'll have to have finance explain.
Oh, yeah, and we will.
Yeah.
We will. That money that is not spent and not reallocated, either it came in under budget or it was abandoned, goes into this fund. And finance is gonna tell us how much money is in that fund. And it fluctuates every year. Some years it's more, some years it's less. But I remember David Oshansky, who was on this because he was on the Budget Advisory Board, was constantly asking that question. And I didn't understand it, but Laura has made this very clear to me. And thank you, Roosevelt, for asking this question, because now I asked for the material that we need to answer that question. Somewhere there is a bank account with unspent funds. And every time I hear somebody say, well, we can do that project because there are unspent funds in the unspent balance fund. I didn't understand where that money was.
Don't get confused with this saying this is the unspent balance, because this is the unspent balance of the project. The funds that you're talking about, the funds that are left at the fund balance, like
Yes,
it's not
yes.
in a project, it's
Yeah,
just sitting
no,
there
no, no.
waiting to be allocated.
That's terrifically clear. So, we go all the way down to the bottom of this document, okay? This is the interesting number that we need to look at. Okay, all the way down to the bottom. See this number? 571. It's like $500 million. Isn't that like $500 million? Chump change. Okay, we got $500 million in the unspent balance, which means, to my understanding, and you correct me if I'm wrong, we committed to be spending this amount of money. We haven't spent a whole bunch of it because we still have this much more to spend. So we've got 473,000 and change of projects that still need to be completed.
Right, that just means that $100 million is sitting on our purchase order ready to be spent. That's what the difference between those two columns are.
Correct, and this still needs to be spent. So of the $500 million worth of work that we committed to doing, in just this scenario, forget about out years, just this scenario, we've only gotten through the pipeline, think of it as a pipeline, we've only gotten through the pipeline this amount of money. And there's a lot more money that needs to go through, so there are a lot of projects. This is the stuff that Alan is concerned about.
Right.
He's in charge of getting this number down. He's in charge of getting this number to approach that number, right? Because if that number.
The 470 is what's actually left to be spent.
Okay, so he's dedicated to getting this down to zero. Because once this is down to zero, we know we've completed everything.
Hope so.
We hope so, okay? But then every year we keep adding.
We're gonna add, right,
We do.
so when we
Now
do
we're
this
gonna add
report
another
again-
244,
Right.
244,000 to this number.
Correct.
I mean, guys,
We're putting money in the projects, it's just trying to get the projects done.
there you go. Okay, so thank you, Roosevelt, for asking the question because it not only brought up a better understanding of where the money goes, and we will find out where that extra money is. But this thing smacked me right in the face, that if this is the way you need to start. Yes, Roosevelt?
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, cool. All right, so that was, I'm gonna follow up on this. I don't know if anybody else is interested in this. Is anybody else interested in
No, this is.
getting the money pumped through the pipeline? Because I think that's very important. Okay, so the fifth one was support for the Budget Advisory Board on line items for capital projects in the general funds budget. Now, you know, at the workshop, when we talked about this, this was one of our previous recommendations, a line item for capital projects. The mayor and thank you so much, guys, really appreciate it. And give Laura my congratulations and thanks. What was I gonna say? Oh, yes. He came up and our recommendation, let me go back for those of you who weren't with us. Our recommendation was to have a line item in the budget, the capital budget, the regular budget, not the capital budget, the regular budget, dedicated specifically to infrastructure. That infrastructure wasn't what was left over after you paid the salaries and whatever we have left over, let's finish up what's the priority projects. There was always gonna be a pot of money to plan for infrastructure. That was our recommendation. It was, what can I say, was an unsophisticated recommendation, because we were new at the time, and that was the thing that, you know, we figured would be good. The Budget Advisory Board, who's into this a lot more, is Shane with us? No, you're on the
Shane.
Budget Advisory.
No.
No, you're not, that's Michael.
Yeah, I am.
Michael, okay, I'm sorry, guys, it's senior moments going on. So Michael, you're a member of the Budget Advisory Board, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and when the chairperson of the Budget Advisory Board came up and spoke at the workshop, he explained I thought, a much more sophisticated way of making sure that dollars were available for capital projects.
Right.
Can you explain that a little bit? I mean, because.
Well, I wasn't at the meeting, so, I'm not sure what he said, to be honest with you.
All right, well, this was my understanding. He was saying that instead of putting money in the capital budget, on the capital budget line, that it actually be money that appears in the ad valorem tax bill. In other words, there'd be like now we have money for stormwaters, and now we have money for the bonds for the parks, and now we have and they're all on your tax bill. You see them specifically on your tax bill. So he was thinking maybe there should be a line on the tax bill and an amount of money, 0.4% of your, taxes, should be dedicated only to infrastructure. Now you pay 4.73 for your taxes, that's your rate, 4.73. Well, they break that down and say you're now paying 4.68 for everything, and oh yes, and then there's 0.23 that only goes to infrastructure. A very interesting, to me, perspective on how to do it. But it's still the same thing. The same thing is infrastructure does not mean what is left over after you've budgeted for everything else. So I've asked I've asked Brian to sort of write that up and explain it to us more specifically than just what I was interpreting what he was saying. And so that we might be able to actually have a specific discussion about that and modify our previous, if we feel it's right, modify our previous recommendation to the commission to be more in line with the way the Budget Advisory Board has thought about it and sort of formulated it. So that was actually the last item that came out of the workshop that I have written down. Now, I may have missed something, I may have, thought only of the things that, struck me. So I would like to ask, since it's 3:30, was this list, this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 list, pretty inclusive of what everybody thought they said they wanted us to look at, or did I miss anything? Peter.
So, Chair, I heard a desire for us to continue to monitor the consent order progress.
Okay, monitor. Well, we actually do that.
When are we finished with this as far as,
February.
pardon me?
February 18th.
So, we gotta get back to, are they gonna extend this? And, there's no point in planning all this if they haven't made a commitment to keep us going.
Okay, or somebody going,
Or
somebody going.
not us personally, but
Right.
the board in
The board,
general. That
exactly.
needs to be vetted out now versus.
Well, I
I
think,
agree with you.
actually Roosevelt asked that question when he asked the mayor, is this stuff you want us to do now, or do you want us to do this later? And
That
the mayor,
decision
of
was not
course,
made and it needs to be made.
and the mayor, of course, gave him the legal answer and said, well, both. We cannot embark upon a brand new initiative like say the 40-year, investigation. We can't embark upon that if we can't see past February. But.
And we can't have tasks that we can't complete.
Right,
Right.
yeah. So I don't know the answer to that question beyond.
Can we send a
Inquiry.
inquiry to the commission, please?
That's a very good idea. Maybe
Okay.
what we can do is,
Maybe you can get it on for tomorrow, real quick?
no, probably.
Why not?
Was that-
Because
Just
I
a
got,
question.
we have to put it, what we need to ask them is, this is what we got out of the workshop, okay? We
The
might-
one thing we didn't get out is, do you plan on extending this? That's all. Do you plan on making this a permanent? How long have we been going on?
The inference in their discussion was that, yeah.
Correct, but I think it's important to get that done.
Okay,
I know it sounds pushy, and it is pushy.
It is
But we
pushy.
need an answer.
I know we do.
4
And so-
months left.
Yeah,
Alright, so what I think we need to do, each one of us has been appointed by somebody. Okay, we've all been appointed by somebody. I think we should all talk to the somebody who appointed us and ask them, have you thought about this? They probably haven't, even if the
If we do it
workshop,
that
they
way,
haven't.
Marilyn,
Yeah.
if we do it that way, we can do that anyway.
Anyway, that's what I'm
But we
thinking.
really need to
Get
get a
input back.
communication to the commission. We enjoyed the meeting, yada, yada, yada. The one thing that we're not clear on, is this committee gonna be a standing committee?
Mhm.
Is this gonna be a permanent standing committee?
Right, they can at least
Or
do that.
task force.
That's just a courtesy, they can let us know. We're sitting here trying to figure out what's gonna be on the horizon next.
How realistic is it, can I ask you, how, the staff, let me ask the staff, how realistic is it to formulate something and get it on the commission's agenda for their next meeting? I mean, their next meeting is Tuesday, it's not gonna be on for Tuesday.
No.
How far in advance do you have to put an item on for a commission agenda
Let's
item?
get one of our commissioners to bring it up during the reports, let him talk about it.
Be a walk-on.
Exactly. Let's get a walk on, let's not make it a big deal.
Well, we have to get somebody to walk it
Let
on.
me see
So
if
maybe
Scott
we
will
should
come in
get,
here.
maybe we should call our commissioners and ask them to bring it up as a walk-on item. Jackie?
I'm gonna call Scott right now and see if he can walk over here.
It's probably,
He'll know.
probably on the afternoon session.
But Chair, Marilyn, don't you think that we should suggest to them more or less your list here?
Well, that was what I suggested, but you know, urgency may be more important than being inclusive. I don't know. That's the discussion, Peter. I agree with you. I think we should take a moment here.
Well, we can also call Jeff and ask Jeff if he can get it on. I don't think it's that difficult. People do this all the time.
Here are some of the issues as an idea, but they're the ones really in the driver's seat.
Absolutely.
And should be telling us, not we telling them.
Yeah, but as an institutionalist, my preference would be, we discussed this at our
That's the
meeting.
problem, you're an
I
institutionalist.
am. I'm the first person. I am the first
Ask for
person.
forgiveness,
Now,
not
you know,
permission.
I'll burn down the bridges, Jackie, when I have to. You know me, if I have to. But, you know, we're having a very good conversation with them. And I think it would be appropriate for us to say, thank you for the meeting. We discussed these things. Here's some questions we still have for you. What did you mean by the 40-year inspection? Oh, and the overarching question that we have for you is, do you want us to do you want a standing committee to continue past February so that we can plan, or the group can plan, or you can plan on what it is you want us to do? So
Like the previous, when Mayor Seiler and them, they provided us with a game plan, if you will. These are the
Well, I think that, you know, they're not going to be doing changing. But if they're gonna do anything, my theory is they're just gonna re-up the resolution and take out the language about the development stuff. Because the language is pretty clear. So I'm telling you, that would be my preference.
I just texted Ben, because I know he's here, I asked him to come over here.
Oh, God, Jackie.
What's wrong with that?
Well, you know, we have to make that decision as a
Get the
group,
ball rolling.
I was just gonna ask him a question.
okay?
Can I make a motion, I make a motion that we ask the city commission if they would like us to continue after
I
February.
believe that they discussed it at the meeting and said they would. So to me, it would be a motion to say, to confirm that they would like us to continue, and for what term?
Thank you, that's a good idea.
Okay,
Certainly
thank you.
assume.
I accept that amendment, Charlie.
Oh, I'm relieved.
You're what, relieved?
He's relieved, right.
I'll second that.
I'm kidding, Jackie. Don't get mad at me.
Who seconded? We have a second?
Peter.
Peter, okay, and what was the motion that we, Jackie, repeat the motion?
No, Charlie fixed it.
I know, but you started it, so it's up to you.
No, I defer to Charlie,
Charlie, what's the
sorry.
motion?
That we understand that the commission's interested in having us to extend our term, and we'd like them to confirm it, and to also confirm specifically how long that term would be.
Okay, that's the motion, it's been seconded,
Second, Peter.
second by Peter, okay, so now it's Charlie's motion, seconded by Peter. Can we get a roll call? Let's do a roll call. Can we have a roll call on that motion, please?
Yes, Mr. Angeli,
Yes.
Mr. Grabsky,
Yes.
Mr. Ladd,
Yes?
Mr. Marshall,
Yes.
Ms. Scott,
Yes.
Mr. Partington,
Yes.
Mr. Walters,
Yes.
Mr. Zelman,
Yes.
and Chair Mamano.
Yes,
It's unanimous.
okay,
Thank you,
so we'll do
Charlie.
it, thank you.
I got
We
the
will get that
concept, you
together.
got the perfectionism.
Okay, we will get that together to get them on as soon as absolutely possible on the next agenda. And Ben can come in and maybe he can
Ben's
walk it
not
on as
here.
well. What, Charlie, that was to get that communication to them as soon as possible, right?
Yes.
Yes, as soon as possible.
Said he was here.
Yeah, he left. He was here, he was left.
I've got to jump off on another call, so I apologize, but I got to run.
Thank you, Charlie, thank you for.
Thank you, everybody. Sorry, I got to jump.
Okay,
See ya. Bye.
okay, so, well, I can't get it faster than I can get it as soon as possible. We'll get it as soon as possible. If
Yeah,
I
that's
can get it-
easy.
Yeah, All right. Okay, old business. Now, this is a very important piece of old business. We only got about a half an hour. And we need to get an update on the proposed pilot study at the Prospect Wellfield and Five Ash Water Plant. Can we find out what's happening?
Yes, so we have two pilot studies, right?
Right, two?
Two.
Oh,
We have one
okay.
on the Wellfield, which is the Prospect Wellfield, that's for the Wellfield.
Right.
And we have the Five Ash Water Plant. That's the one that I was talking about the corner.
Okay,
Okay. They're both still with legal. They're still redacting these documents for us to be able to share them with the public.
can you explain what portions they're redacting and the necessity for doing that?
So there is some sections on those reports that it might talk about a specific location where a well field is located, or a specific location where a tank is located in the plant, and that cannot be disclosed to the public.
Appreciate that.
So they will black all that section out and send us the document back.
Can I suggest that maybe if we could get just a general synopsis, for both pilot plants for the Prospect Wellfield and then of course the Five Ash, on basically these are the types of tests performed and such to indicate the alkalinity or whatever that these tests would determine. And then kind of a synopsis at the end stating that, summarizing that these tests have shown that these are the types of treatment processes. I'm thinking now Five Ash or our new water treatment plant. These are the types of processes that would lend itself towards these kind of treatment.
So it's kind of like to get a table out of the report and say these are the results.
Yeah, it's kind of executive summary type of thing.
And well, we have our executive summaries. But executive summaries sometimes can be very lengthy too, you know?
Yeah, okay, but let me ask you a question apropos to what Ralph asked you. There must have been a scope of services for this report.
Yes, and they're attached here. They're in here.
Okay.
So if you look at update of pilot study and evaluation, it talks about the scope of work. There, for instance, for the well field, there is 3 task orders.
Okay.
We're done with number 1, which is the one that they're redacting right now. Then we have to go to task 2 and task 3 on the well field stuff.
Right.
And it explains it here what those are.
Very good.
Now, on the Five Ash, the scope of services are here, and it talks about the using the back, the GAC, I'm sorry, the activity card as one part of the plan. And it explains here what is required and what the goals are, et cetera.
Well, that's fine, that's fantastic, that's exactly what we need, so that when we see the results, we can, this is what they were supposed to do, this is what they did, and this is the results.
So honestly, I believe that we should have it back from legal before our next meeting.
That would be wonderful.
That's what my hope is, and I'm gonna keep asking them that, we
Isn't
should
that
have.
similar what the Peel Dixie plant went through when they changed from their lime softening process and then they went to more,
Yeah.
That's kind of, they get a feel on where we're headed for.
Right. Yeah, so that's where we are. I mean,
Okay,
and we should have it by the next.
okay,
So
all right, so then let's move on. Let's move on to the unfunded capital projects public works list. Okay, this is very interesting, since we just now figured out how to read the CIP and where all the money is coming from, all the various funds and how much project works there's committed to, how much we've already done, what we're gonna add in the next year, in the next 5 years. What, when you say the unfunded capital projects, the public works list, how, and I don't see any backup here, what are you thinking of? or was this the presentation that the commission got on all the unfunded projects?
I think the unfunded, Victor Carozzi, Assistant Public Works Director, the city commission received a presentation on all the unfunded, and that would be, the Public Works had some projects within that are not currently funded.
And what projects are those?
Moment.
These are projects that you guys think are necessary, but have not even, they're not even on those spreadsheets. They're not even contemplated on those spreadsheets, is that correct? The CIP spreadsheets, they're not even up there.
Correct. We have the proposed CIPs, right?
Yeah, well, that's what we were just looking at, the proposed CIP.
Right. And these are all the projects that are, some of these are funded. If you don't have any funding in these areas on this project, that means that the project is not funded.
So that's the list of projects that we're talking about. Okay, what are they?
There are all these projects here on this list.
Which page are you looking at?
It's similar to what she was saying, what's the lady that came? It's the same list. But some of those projects here, if you see that they're funded each year, there is money on each year. And some of these are not.
Can you give me a page? What page are we looking at?
I look at the. We can look at the first page 113, where you look at building permit fund.
Page 13.
Yeah,
Page 1 of 12. I only have 1 of 12.
There is 2 sets. The first set is got 13 pages.
Page,
What?
okay, I got it. All right, I'm going to page 12 of 13.
Let's see, let's go to
12, isn't it?
say that again.
12 of 12.
Oh, he's-
Okay, there is 2 sets. There is
Right.
one of 13 pages and it's one of 12 pages.
So-
Let's look at the 12.
I thought you were looking at the adopted CIP.
Yes, you're right, Peter. We're looking at the adopted, not the
Yeah.
proposed. Okay.
So
12 of
if you
12.
look at page 12,
Yes.
see that the first project is small water main replacement?
So, first project,
The very at the top of the page. That's not.
irrigation
that's the page.
upgrades.
That's not,
I'm on 12 of 12.
no, 12 of 13.
13 on the other
That's
side.
where we were.
12 of 13. Yes, we'll go back to 12 of 13.
Okay.
Okay, let's go to 11 to 12. Which one are you on?
You tell me. You just tell me where I'm going.
We can go in either one, it doesn't matter.
Small water main.
Small water mains on page 12 and 13.
I got it.
Of the,
Okay.
I'm there. Small water mains.
of the proposed.
If
Right.
you look at the first project there,
There's no money.
there is no money
I got you.
until
2020.
2023.
Gotcha.
So that project will happen at that point. So if that project funded on 2022, the answer is no.
Okay, so these are the unfunded projects that you presented to the commission as being important.
Yeah.
Okay, so everything here that has no money in it is what you think they should be spending money on. Okay,
Yeah, they're needed projects, but some of them are not funded.
well, they're certainly not funded in 2022.
Correct. There is some projects that are funded in 2022 because we have a limited amount of money that we can use for each category. Like water and sewer or stormwater, there is a limited pot of money that we can use. So we're gonna pick the projects that are highest priority to do first, and those will go in each year like that.
So for an example, the second one down, or the third one down, I'm sorry, with the 5 ash water treatment filters rehab.
Yeah,
So you made a determination that that's no longer an important part of that existing system.
so
What's the story?
the story there is that there is another project that we're doing for those filters, and the money probably got moved to another project to do filters. It's a different project number. So it doesn't mean that particular one, it doesn't mean that we're not gonna do the filters.
Does the auditor know that?
What's that?
No, seriously, this is a real problem. This goes back to where does the money go? I mean, I understand everything that the finance people told me, but you know, what they told me was sometimes the money just gets moved into another line.
Gets out of the enterprise
And there's
fund.
no way to see that. There's no way to track that.
That was, Jackie and I were just convincing here
Yeah.
about this chart needs another column on it when there's a strike through.
Where'd the money go?
Why?
Why?
And where'd it go?
Yeah.
Give me a line there.
So in that
Why would be a
particular one,
paragraph?
there is another line somewhere in here, I can find it right now, where we have the same project, but instead of doing what this is saying here, in 2023, we're gonna spend $2 million on this filter. So what we did is that we took that money and other money from other projects and moved them to the filter project where there is more than 2-3 filters. So we do it more, you know, just because I know the background, but that's what happens
You know,
sometimes.
for somebody like, you know, looking at it.
We're looking at it, we wouldn't know.
That doesn't jump out.
Right. Yeah, so that's another question I have to ask Laura.
And I
Get
think
it.
the important thing also to remember is that capital improvement project, the community investment plan, it's a balancing act, and that's what we do as engineers. It's a matter of how much money can be provided in any year that's realistic to be spent, weighing that against the needs that we're coming up with, and doing the best we can to provide a series of projects that address the most pressing needs of the community at this moment. What you're seeing is that at any one time, that there might be some dynamics to it as needs change, and then we will have to then reevaluate and work with our internal structures. If there is a different project came up that might have a higher need based on new information, we'll reevaluate. So it's a kind of somewhat of a living document, if you will, in certain ways.
Which is a good way to describe it, and I think, you know, I used to say it was like 3D chess, but it's not even that. Yeah, Peter,
Can
yes.
I ask a question, please?
Sure.
Do you know, Omar, how many city bridges are currently rated structurally deficient by the Department of Transportation?
Can we hold that for the next item, which is the bridge master plan, Peter?
I
Unless,
thought are we not on the bridge master plan?
no, we were talking about unfunded, public works projects,
We can move on.
unfunded. Okay, well, I guess we could throw in bridges while we're there, what do you think? Yeah, all right.
Nice transition.
Okay, nice transition, we gotta get moving here. Nice transition into bridge master plan. The Peter's question is, in the bridge master plan, do we have any analysis, and here's the bridge master plan, it's right here in our backup material. Okay, in that, is there a list of the conditions of the bridges, is that what you wanted, A, B, C, D?
No, the department, unlike the 40-year inspection program, I think our bridges are inspected every 2 years by the Department of Transportation, and they have two major categories: structurally deficient, which is the worrying one, and functionally deficient, which is less worrying. It basically means there is not the lane widths are not wide enough or something like that. But more worrying is if you have a bridge that's been rated structurally deficient, I think that has to jump to the top of the priority list for bridges. So do we have any that are still structurally deficient?
I think you prepared a presentation.
So if you want, I can either answer the
Please.
question. This is Victor Carosi, Assistant Public Works Director. I can either answer that question directly for you now, and then we can go into the presentation. Back in 2014, the city commissioned a study. 2014, the city commissioned a study from a company called Trans Systems to perform an overall evaluation of our bridges. We could say at this point, currently six of the city's 53 bridges are rated as structurally deficient, and 22 are listed as functionally obsolete. But we have to be careful with the wording. While it might say structurally deficient, it doesn't mean the bridge is like going to fall tomorrow. It's just a way that, engineers have a way of having to categorize things and evaluate in a way. And in different terms, there are different criteria that are used for making that evaluation, leading to those. Are they of concern? Yes, they are. And these are different bridges that aren't priority list for us to address. There's a certain amount that we can do each year. So, but to answer your question, it's 6 of 53 are listed as structurally deficient and 22 as functionally obsolete.
So do those 6 jump to the top of the list that we want to get done?
Yes. Yes, in fact, that's the way the program that we've outlined arranges for the different work that's being done, so.
Can I ask a
yes.
question before you move on? How could Hendricks Isle need repair when it just was redone by the FDOT or whatever?
So,
Or maybe that was from 2014, but now it's been corrected, okay. I have bad vision.
No worries, no, that's okay.
So all the data in here is from 2014.
We've tried to update it as well, but it really goes back to the initial report. So our bridge master plan is from 2014, but you should also know that the FDOT does biennial, meaning every 2 years they inspect all of the bridges within the city. And we are provided with those updates. And so again, going back to the things are dynamic in our office, there's a certain dynamicism to that reporting as well. So as you get new information, you have to change your plans and adjust as accordingly.
So let me ask you a question. Of the 6 bridges that were structurally deficient, are all 6 of them funded for repair?
I have, one has been completed, that would be the Coconut Isle.
Coconut Isle is done.
We have South Ocean Drive, which is a funded bridge and is currently in the county surtax program.
Got it.
There is a Westlake Bridge, which is also part of the county surtax program. That bridge is actively being reviewed and look for, actions on that bridge.
When you say reviewed and look for actions, funding?
It's part of the county surtax program. We are applying for monies there.
Applying. Okay. Yeah, go on. That's 3.
That's 3. As far as the others, I don't have
Okay, but
answers for you.
we could get those. 1,
Yes,
2,
yes.
3. Yes, Ralph.
can you give us a general idea of what these bridges fall in? You say structurally deficient. Or does that mean there's major cracking or something in the structural manner that makes these unsafe or unoperable or close to thereof?
The answer is more of how a bridge is evaluated. Now, for instance, I happen to have a recent report from a bridge, it's a 30-page report that talks about all different parts of the bridges, so they're thoroughly evaluated. And then based upon the inspector's evaluation, there are number ratings that go into formulas and, from everything from the type of cracking,
I'm just talking generally. I mean, we wouldn't, most people wouldn't understand that anyway. It'd just be a matter of, if there's
well, I think that I can tell you
a settlement, one of the pilings that are out there that's starting to fail, something like that.
Right. Well, overall, I think it comes into 4 pieces: structural adequacy and safety. That's the highest category or highest rating that you will. And what you're talking about there is going exactly that. Can the bridge support the weight that it's designed to support? It's really in simplistic terms that's what it comes to. So that's the number one question, and what types of potential defects are being observed. And then from there are other categories: serviceability and functional obsolescence. Essential for public use. This is one way in, one way out type of bridge.
Like a 12-ton rated bridge
Right,
may
and a
not
bridge
be able to hold that, and it's down to say 8 or something.
Exactly, and that would be a sufficiency rating and things of that nature.
That's what I was trying to get.
And all these numbers get put into a formula and get cranked out into a sufficiency rating. And that is then use those numbers to determine whether or not a bridge should be repaired or a bridge should be replaced.
Gotcha.
Victor, do you know if any of those bridges have weight restrictions on them currently?
I have seen many weight restriction on those bridges. For instance, when we were doing the Rio Vista, and we had to do the temporary pipe as a bypass, we had to meet the weight requirements. So yeah, some of them have weight requirements.
Okay.
Well, that makes them a priority in my mind, because the weight restrictions are almost impossible to enforce.
Yeah, well, the question then I think is that, are any of the bridges that are on this list that we're working on, do they have currently weight restrictions? I can see a weight restriction if you're doing construction work. It may be an extraordinary circumstance because you got, heavy equipment. But I think Peter's got a good question here. Are any of these bridges that we're working on, the 6, let's keep the 6 universe, are they in such dire condition that we've already got weight restrictions on them that we need to be concerned about? Or they just, we got a report that it needs to be fixed?
These bridges are reports that there are certain structural elements that are of concern that need to be fixed.
Right, it's not that,
It's not
don't drive a truck over this or you're gonna fall
They
into
have a
the.
limit, they show you the limit.
They all have
All bridges,
they all
all
have-
bridges have a
Right,
limit?
exactly.
All bridges have a
Right.
limit, but is there an extraordinary limit? Is it less than the, normal
No,
limit?
what I was initially getting at is, when I gave the example, if there was like an 18-ton maximum thing at the design part. However, because there's a structural deterioration and such, it's no longer capable of serving that weight limit there. And so it may be reduced down, or just all that truck traffic that would qualify for that would be rerouted around that bridge.
Is that your question, Peter? Was that your question? Are there extraordinary weight limits below what the design limit is?
Yes, basically, yes.
Okay,
To this point, again, I can bring back a more definitive answer, but my staff hasn't brought any of the any weight reduction to my attention, so I
Okay.
can't answer directly, other than it hasn't been brought to my attention, but I'm more than happy to answer the question. I'm not sure if Raymond Nazir is on the call. If Raymond is here on the call and you're.
Yes, I am.
Yeah, Raymond is here. He's our senior project manager. He is our bridge guru. And a specific question, perhaps, if there are any bridges that we are aware of that currently have load reduction rating, if you would be able to advise us on that?
No, there is no load reduction.
okay.
All the bridges are posted, and what is on the post is the load that the bridge can carry.
Okay.
But
So
sometimes,
every time that
Right.
that's below design, correct, Raymond, sometimes?
what they do is they do a load rating analysis every 2 years, and that's how they come up with the load posting on the bridge, meaning
Yes.
that this is the actual load that the bridge can carry.
Well,
But there is no, but that would be your load restriction right there.
I don't want to, Chair, I don't want to labour this too long, but take some of the bridges, the aisles, where there's only one way in and out. And if you have a relatively low weight restriction, some construction vehicles are inevitably going to exceed that. Again, I'm only making the point that there is a category of bridges, I think, that should be a priority. And it feeds back into your point earlier on, Chair, about the necessity to have a carve out of money from the general fund and the approach by the Chair of the Budget Advisory Board.
Yeah, it's the same issue. It's like, we have needs, and we take care of these needs first, and then if there's anything left over, we do these needs, so.
Well, I should let you know that the city's annual budget does support funding for repairs to bridges. There's an annual allotment that goes into that action, and we have contracts that are assigned for annual bridge maintenance, so that we are able to be responsive to needs that come up throughout the year based upon inspections, and do address those issues. So we do have one pot of money that addresses and is in the budget for specifically for roadway, bridge maintenance and repairs.
So that's in the operating budget,
In the
though.
operating
In the
budget, yes.
operating budget, right, and that's for repair, but not for replacement.
And replacement is part of the, because of the value of replacements, most of these bridges are around $1 million to $2 million and up on as far as replacements.
Right.
Those are community investment plan projects, and those are, bonded.
That's what we're looking at.
Right.
We're looking
And now
at.
this report, if you let me, the actual report that was done back in 2014 is going back to 2014 dollars. What this report did for us is it allocated, based upon this chart, it's different years for different replacements. So it talked about the number of bridges that we have, and it broke them down into different categories of repair, and then projected a schedule for repairs and or replacements. And we're still following that schedule to the extent practical with the monies that become available.
Any provision for the increasing height of the tides to, when you replace a bridge, that you will obviously elevate the bridge to keep that navigatable underneath?
That is a challenge, because there are certain geometrical constraints with respect to the approaches to bridges, so you have to, balance the needs. We do try to improve the height of the bridges when feasible. I think that was done with some of the bridges that were replaced by the state along the Las Olas corridor. We're increasing somewhat the height of other bridges when we can, but most of the bridge heights is already controlled by the end station, so there's not much more we can do there. Raymond, would you be able to offer any further input on adjustment of bridges for rising water levels?
Board of Engineers.
I don't think he's with us anymore.
Uh,
While we're
So-
looking for him, can I ask you a
Yeah, please.
question on how to read this chart? This chart says that from 2014 to 2019, I believe we've spent $4 million on bridges? Is
Yes.
that the number?
Yes,
And that's including repair,
yes, repair and replacement.
right? So could we split that up into what is replacement versus repair?
We can.
Okay, no,
again,
not
you know,
now,
that's
just
not now,
asking
but
the question.
We can break that up for you, sure.
Okay, so
And again,
then,
of that, we have this year, Northeast 55th and Bayview are both scheduled for repairs this year. Coconut Isle Drive has already been replaced, and South Ocean Drive is on schedule for this year.
okay, and then when you go to the next column, 20 to 2025,
Yes.
I see a very small number for both repair and replace. What does that mean?
That's
That
a
means
small
there's no
number.
money.
Or
Okay.
they're good at math.
Well,
You mean
Actually, I'm terrible at
four
that.
hundred and thirty-two thousand?
Yeah, yeah, all right.
So again, that's something, again, that has to be adjusted. We also, again, there's a certain dynamics to all our budgeting, and as different priorities and needs come up, that's something I think where we can always have support.
Okay, so then you're not gonna be spending any, according to the current budget, you're not gonna be spending any money until, or any big money, until 2026 to 2031.
And here's a certain interesting part of this project. So you look out into that chart, late into 2032 to 2036, there was a planned replacement of the Castle Harbor Isle Bridge and Northeast 41st Street Bridge. As it is now, the Castle Harbor Isle Drive, due to a recent inspection, actually has a lane restriction on the bridge due to a structural deficiency that was observed. And that bridge, along with its sister bridge, are now under design for replacement, and so there's gonna be a change into these charts and rearrangement, going back to, as I say, how we are always looking at these, and there's the 2-year cycle of bridge inspections.
So this chart really needs updating,
Well, again, this is a snapshot in time,
but
and
the
these
time was 2014.
except, yes, the time for this was 2014, this is based upon the report, but again, we are constantly reevaluating and reexamining. So I just wanted you to.
And a new report would show that in the 2020 to 2025, there's actually more money. Because that Castle
Again, it'll
Avenue,
be, right,
when
right.
it, so,
But what I wanna do in this report, at least let you know that we did have this report, and
Good.
it is adjusted, but there's a certain dynamics where we are changing things, and I can make this more updated to reflect current conditions. And bridges is something that is constantly being reevaluated, reexamined, and re-updated.
and I think that's a, a pat on the back to you for doing that, and people should know that.
Yeah.
I mean, if somebody just saw this, they'd say the same thing I said, there's no money, but you say, no, that's not true, we moved this one to here because it needs to be moved.
And of course, you recognize that when you're talking earlier about your community investment plan, there are certain monies and how things get moved, so there's a certain, trade-off in how things get planned. From one year, it might have to be pushed to another year, so.
Let me ask you the CIP question of the moment. If I go back to the CIP plan that we just were in, would I find a line that says the Capitol Harbor Isle Bridge has actually money in it for design?
Probably not directly.
But the money is
Raymond?
somewhere in there.
Excuse me.
Yes,
That's right,
Castle Harbor has money on it for repair and replacement.
it does.
in the CIP. That's good. I mean, that's the right answer. That's a good answer. If I look for it, I will find it there, and there will be money in the unspent or the available for the design. I think we're beginning to understand how this works. Excellent, excellent. All right, can I ask you, since we're up at 4 o'clock? This is very helpful. This is the first time we've actually, right guys, this is the first time we've dug into bridges, and I don't think it'll be the last time. So if you can, update this so that we can see what's the more current situation, anything we can do to help move this along, we will certainly do that. Okay? Thank you very much. Now, guys, it's 4 o'clock. I'm going to suggest that this was a really deep meeting, and I've got to do a lot of writing to do. So can we just, anything that we haven't spoken about, the sidewalk program and any of the monitoring things, can we just carry it on to next month? Is everybody okay with that?
Perfect.
So give us that.
So moved, Madam Chair.
So moved.
So moved, Matt. Oh, thank you, Roosevelt. I was gonna just ask you if I could do that myself or I need a motion, because he always tells me what I
You don't
have.
have to, but
Okay, thank you, guys and gal, for coming.
Thank you.
This was a good meeting, and I will get that communication out as soon as it's humanly possible.
Marilyn,
See you next month.
Who did the follow-up as it relates to these 5 things that the commission said? Did you do that or did staff do it?
I did that.
You did that?
Yeah.
I wasn't sure who did the agenda. Okay.
I work, this is we work together on the agenda.
Gotcha.
I get a
Okay,
draft, I send it back, she sends it back, I get it back.
Perfect. Thank you.
Okay. All right, this is good.
get it out of here.
Can't do that anymore.
That's right.
anymore.